Hey everybody, we are on day 32 of our Bible in a Year series we're doing, and we are starting, honestly, one of my favorite books of the Bible, Leviticus. And I'm going to get into, real quick at the onset here, why this is one of my favorite books. It didn't always used to be. It's been the last couple years. I kind of dove deep into it. It was one I would always just kind of rush through just to get through. I would never really put a lot of thought into it. It's frequently known as the through the Bible in a year killer, because you get Genesis is creation and everything's new and it's starting, and then you get to Exodus and it's exciting. You got the plagues, you've got God leading the people through through the desert with a pillar of fire, and then the building of the Ark of the Covenant, or not the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle and all this stuff. And so it's exciting. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And then you get to Leviticus, and it's like priests must be at least this high, and like there's a lot of stuff. It seems very arbitrary. It seems at first glance, if you just read it, like it seems like it's not for us. Like there's nothing you can get from it. But I would challenge you, as we're reading through this, to get rid of that idea. I'm going to try to point out some things as we're reading, but there is so much to unpack in Leviticus. I'm not going to be able to hit everything. And I do want to keep these videos relatively short-ish, so you can just listen kind of casually through the day. But I would advise you find a commentary, find somebody that actually has done a deep dive, and go through this like that too. But keep in mind, as we go through Leviticus, this is a picture of Jesus. The sacrifices that are there that we see coming in, this is Jesus. 100%, this is Jesus. This is what this is supposed to be a reflection of. So, keep that in mind as we dive in to Leviticus 1. Okay. Then the Lord summoned Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting. Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when any of you brings an offering to the Lord from the livestock, you may bring your offering from the herd or the flock. If his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he is to bring an unblemished male. He will, again, think of Jesus. He will bring it to the entrance to the tent of meeting, so that he may be accepted by the Lord. He is to lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering so it can be accepted on his behalf, to make atonement for him. It's transferring sin so that this sacrifice can make atonement. He is to slaughter the bull before the Lord. Aaron's sons, the priests, are to present the blood and splatter it on all sides of the altar. That is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Then he is to skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron, the priest, will prepare a fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. Aaron's sons, the priests, are to arrange the pieces, the head, and the fat on top of the burning wood on the altar. The offerer is to wash its entrails. The offerer is to wash its entrails and legs with the water. Then the priest will burn all of it on the altar as a burnt offering, a food offering, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. But if his offering for a burnt offering is from the flock, from sheep or goats, he is to present an unblemished male. He will slaughter it on the north side of the altar before the Lord. Aaron's sons, the priests, will splatter its blood against the altar on all sides. He will cut the animal into pieces with its head and its fat, and the priests will arrange them on top of the burnt wood on the altar. But he is to wash the entrails and legs with water. The priest will then present all of it and burn it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, a food offering, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If his offering to the Lord is a burnt offering of birds, he is to present his offering from the turtle doves or young pigeons. Then the priest is to bring it to the altar and will twist off its head and burn it on the altar. Its blood should be drained at the side of the altar. He will remove its digestive tract, cutting off the tail feathers, and throw it on the east side of the altar at the place for ashes. He will tear it open by its wings without dividing the bird. Then the priest is to burn it on the altar on top of the burning wood. It is a burnt offering, a food offering, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. When anyone presents, Leviticus 2, when anyone presents a grain offering as an offering to the Lord, it is to consist of fine flour. He is to pour olive oil on it, put frankincense on it, and bring it to Aaron's sons and priests. The priests will take a handful of the flour and oil from it, along with all the frankincense, and will burn this memorial portion of it on the altar, a food offering, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. But the rest of the grain offering will belong to Aaron and his sons. It is the holiest part of the food offering to the Lord. When you present a grain offering baked in an oven, it is to be made of fine flour, either unleavened cakes mixed with oil or unleavened wafers coated with oil. If your offering is a grain offering prepared on a griddle, it is to be unleavened bread made of fine flour mixed with oil. Break it into pieces and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your offering is a grain offering prepared in a pan, it is to be made with fine flour with oil. When you bring it to the Lord, the grain offering made in any of these ways, it is to be presented to the priest, and he will take it to the altar. The priest will remove the memorial portion from the grain offering and burn it on the altar, a food offering, a pleasant aroma to the Lord. But the rest of the grain offering will belong to Aaron and his sons. It is the holiest part of the food offerings to the Lord. No grain offering that you present to the Lord is to be made with yeast, for you are not to burn any yeast or honey. As a food offering to the Lord, you may present them to the Lord as an offering of first fruits, but you are not to be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma. You are to season each of your grain offerings, with salt. You must not omit from your grain offering the salt of the covenant with your God. You are to present salt with each of your offerings. If you present a grain offering of first fruits to the Lord, you are to present fresh heads of grain, crushed kernels, roasted on the fire, for your grain offering of first fruits. You are to put oil and frankincense on it. It is a grain offering. The priest will then burn some of the crushed kernels and oil with all its frankincense as a food offering to the Lord. Chapter 3. If his offering is a fellowship sacrifice, and he is presenting an animal from the herd, whether male or female, he is to present one without blemish before the Lord. He is to lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, will splatter the blood on all sides of the altar. He will present part of the fellowship sacrifice as a food offering to the Lord, the fat surrounding the entrails, all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, with the fat on them at the loins. He will also remove the fatty lobe of the liver and the kidneys. Aaron's sons will burn it on the altar along with the burnt offering that is on the burning wood, a food offering, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If his offering as a fellowship sacrifice to the Lord is from the flock, he is to present a male or female without blemish. If he is presenting a lamb for his offering, he is to present it before the Lord. He must lay his hand on the head of his offering, then slaughter it before the tent of meeting. Aaron's sons will splatter its blood on all sides of the altar. He will then present part of the fellowship sacrifice as a food offering to the Lord, consisting of its fat and the entire fat tail, which he is to remove close to the backbone. He will also remove the fat surrounding the entrails, all the fat on the entrails, the 2 kidneys with the fat on them at the loins, and the fatty lobe of the liver above the kidneys. Then the priest will burn the food on the altar as a food offering to the Lord. If his offering is a goat, he is to present it before the Lord. He must lay his hand on its head and slaughter it before the tent of meeting. Aaron's sons will splatter its blood on all sides of the altar. He will present part of his offering as a food offering to the Lord, the fat surrounding the entrails at the fat, all the fat that is on the entrails, the 2 kidneys with the fat on them at the loins. He will also remove the fatty lobe of the liver with the kidneys. Then the priest will burn the food on the altar as a food offering for a pleasing aroma. All fat belongs to the Lord. This is a permanent statute throughout your generations. Wherever you live, you must not eat any fat or blood. Okay. Leviticus 1 through 3 is in the books. Again, there's a lot of similar to this in Leviticus. There's some different stuff. There's a lot of talking about sacrifice and how sacrifices to be made and what's acceptable and things like that. But it is a very, very good book. Think about Jesus as we're going through. Think about the sacrifice that he made, and look for you can see a lot of connections there. But we will get into first question. What do the different types of offerings in these chapters teach us about the nature of our relationship with God and the importance of sacrifice? Well, I think one big piece is that there are multiple different options, and you'll see this as we progress too. But a goat or a lamb, something like that, would be more costly, and there are poor people there. They have the rules we already talked about, that they're not supposed to. They take a Sabbath on their land, and part of that is so that the people that are poor, they can go get the food that grows there. And so part of this is those people are still expected to make sacrifices. And so if they can't, let's say they can't afford a goat, they can't afford to sacrifice a goat. Well, then they can do a bird, turtle dove. Well, they can't do that. Well, they can do some grain. So it's making, and I think this is kind of shows the nature of God. Is it's not about necessarily what you give, because, and this, we'll get into this in as we progress through, because we're going to talk about tithe and stuff like that. But tithing is not a New Testament command. It's not for Christians today. 10% is far too much for some people and far too little for other people. It is about the heart. It is about your heart posture, and giving generously is what we are commanded to do in the New Testament. But I think this kind of goes with that. Yes, there is an exact amount to give, but God makes a way so that even the people that don't have the means can still do what they're supposed to do. Question 2. How can we apply the principles of gratitude and dedication found in the grain and peace offerings of our own lives today? So it's a little different for us today because we don't make these sacrifices anymore. We're not. This isn't part of what we do. But think about this. We see Paul in the New Testament says that we are to present our bodies a living sacrifice. So, whereas in the Old Testament they would give some grain or a bird, or whatever they went under. Now we're told to just give ourselves. What does that mean? Everything. All we have is God's. Now, the return that we get back is way more than anything we could ever give. But that is what we are told to offer as an offering in the New Testament. We are to give ourselves. So it's different. It can be harder some level. Question 3. In what ways do these early laws in Leviticus foreshadow the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus, and how does that shape our understanding of grace? So what we've seen so far, specifically when they're talking about it needs to be an unblemished male, is really the one that sticks out so far in what we've seen. But we will see others. It talks about my mind just blanked. But there's tons of foreshadowing of Jesus in Leviticus. So we will see that throughout as we progress on. That's not gonna let up. So that is, I believe, it for today. Appreciate everyone watching and listening up to this point. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. Word of mouth is the best way that podcasts spread. So if this has been beneficial to you, if it's been a blessing to you, think about maybe passing it on to somebody else, recommending they jump in as well. They can start at the beginning and just work their way through one day at a time. They can start right where we're at and work through. They can go to the beginning and go more to catch up, to go with us daily. Whatever fits for them or works for them, or whatever. I want to help people read the Bible more consistently and stick with it every day of the year. So that's the big driving point behind all of this. So yeah, we will continue Leviticus tomorrow, and it's going to be good. See you then. Thanks. God bless.